Good evening and welcome to Games Aperitif with Lyndon Richardson. In this series I'll be explaining the merits of some of gaming's least understood genres to the great unwashed. Can you enjoy an arty 2D platformer even if you're not a games journalist? Why would I play a survival game when I could just go and punch a tree in my own garden? Come with me as I lead you on a charge across the swirling battlefield of ignorance, storm the Winter Palace of Power, and frolic with the comely concubines of conquest. We begin with the grand strategy game. The most important game in this most important of genres remains Sid Meier's Civilization. Here a single nation is guided from the Iron Age to the Space Age, turn by turn, under the watchful eye of an immortal Alexander the Great, Montezuma, or Prime Minister John Curtin of Australia. Players explore the globe, build cities, build armies, engage in diplomacy or conquest. Ultimately, the vast scope of Civilization is both its greatest strength and weakness, leading to great moments like the climactic battle of Spearman vs. Tank in 1472. Civilization games can be utterly fascinating. In 2012, one man revealed that he'd been playing the same game of Civilization 2 for 14 years, until the in-game date of 3091. In this simulated future, the polar ice caps have melted and the Earth is ravaged by nuclear war between the Celts and Native Americans, presumably following an argument over who invented the mohawk. But the scope of the game, and the abstractions that it makes, can make it a jack of all trades, stately in its progress, and often less than visually spectacular. For those craving something more immediate, more visceral, there can be only war. Total War. The Total War games combine the turn-based strategy of the Civilization games with something no other game can offer, something approaching realistic battles, with all the spectacle that entails. Instead of abstract hexes, or drawing a box around a blob of tanks, these are real battles of formations and flanking maneuvers, where an entire war can be won by squishing the King of Spain with a boulder. The games have much of the same appeal as the XCOM games, where generals and armies are painstakingly built up over decades, until finally your shimmering ranks of knights storm the beaches and then just sit there because one guy is still stuck in the boat. The historical games offer the opportunity to hold off the barbarians as the Romans, or change the course of history at Waterloo. But for those for whom the spectacle of real war is not enough, there is another frontier. Total Warhammer Total Hammer Hammer War. It's everything the Total War offers, with 100 new variables. How will you deal with dragons flying straight over your impenetrable front line? A necromancer who can resurrect his fallen infantry, or whatever this is. Of course, Civilization and Total War are far from the only games in the genre, but the biggest group left has to be what I'll call the Paradox Grand Strategy game. Paradox have a grand strategy game for almost every setting there is, whether that's the medieval world of Crusader Kings, the age of the Second World War in Hearts of Iron, or the space empires of Stellaris. Paradox have made a name for themselves in doing almost every type of game in more depth, and often simply better than any of the competition. Look at Stellaris. Where some space strategy games might allow you to choose from a variety of alien races, Stellaris will let you make your own race with thousands of meaningful game-changing options. But why stop there? Not only can you make your own race, you can choose to accept alien immigrants from other empires, using them to settle planets that puny humans would never dare. And then if that's not enough, you can discover gene editing and give your species enormous arms for working in the mines. And if that's not enough, you can research sexual compatibility, allowing your race of locust people to put their enormous genetically engineered space cocks to work, breeding with other aliens to create whole new species for you to shag, enslave, or eat as you so desire. For those with disdain for the petty barbarism of war, many of Paradox's games have compelling non-violent paths to follow. Whether that's terraforming and constructing Dyson spheres in Stellaris, colonialism and trade in Europa Universalis, or the Game of Thrones style backstabbing and seduction in Crusader Kings. Sure, you can play as a genocidal space Hitler, or colonize India as the French, but there is as much joy and often more challenge to be had in building a multi-ethnic democracy, or colonizing France as the Indians. In their scope and depth, the Paradox Grand Strategy games go almost beyond games and into the realm of history simulators. If you've ever wondered how history might have changed if Columbus had crossed the ocean and discovered Atlantis instead of America, you can set that up in Europa Universalis and find out. At any given moment in these games, 1,000 systems are interacting with each other and telling 1,000 different stories. Clearly, playing these games whilst drinking should be a stately experience. An 18th century Habsburg emperor such as yourself should expect only the finest continental specialities. But remember, you'll be playing these games for a long time, and as such I would recommend pacing yourselves to suit. I'd recommend beginning with a continental beer, such as a German Weissbier, before progressing to a rich port or cognac once wars are complete and you're consolidating your territory. With many of these games now getting console ports, there's never been a better time to try the grand strategy game. The time has come to rebuild the world in your image, and build your image to the scale of worlds. And on the pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away.